Indeed, good morning to you. Well, from what we understand, Kokta as well as the Ugu District Municipality, which governs this particular area on the KZN South Coast, has been intervening with residents, but residents have had enough. This issue has been going on, like you said, for the past 3 years. Today, I'm going to be exploring the impact of this. First, looking at the impact on the tourism industry. The KZN South Coast used to thrive on the tourism industry because of its popular beaches, but that's on the decline now, as we've spoken to the owner of one of these chalets on the South Coast. And we're also looking at how the most poorest residents here in this community are coping without access to this precious resources. Joining me to unpack this is Mr. Ibrahim Sheikh, a community activist born and brought up on the South Coast. Mr. Sheikh, how have residents been coping without water? I understand the interruptions are going without water for weeks on end at a time.
Look, without being an alarmist, I will have to say it as it is. It's been an absolute challenge for the residents, for owners of property in this area. They haven't had water for weeks. In 60 days, you'll have 10 days of water, and that's intermittent. You get connected at 2 p.m., and by 10 p.m. in the same evening, water is disconnected again. So it's not even something that you could look forward to even when the water is switched on. Last night, the water came on at 11 o'clock, but residents are just waiting for when it's going to be switched off again. And that's how we've adapted to living this way now. It's become a way of life to have no water.
We're outside Umzumbe Chalets. This is one of the commercial areas we're exploring. Tell me about the impact on tourism because of the lack of water.
As you said, the entire South Coast depends on tourism. We've got blue flag status beaches here, fantastic beaches. Businesses have come up to obviously benefit from this. The tourism industry has been impacted and in a very, very, very bad way. We're standing outside Umzumbe Chalets now. They've had to get JoJo tanks in, put in investments from pumps and infrastructure. But even then, they couldn't get the water filled because the tankers that's supposed to come through and put the water in for the holiday makers haven't been here to fill the water. So even though the owners have now put money forward, Ugu hasn't come to the party. And it's impacted. People have cancelled, they want the deposits back, and it's really been very bad for business. It's going downhill. Yeah.
Now later today we're going to be going further in this community, looking at informal settlements as well as rural areas more further in. Tell me, how have they been coping? I understand you've been trying to assist them to get water.
Yeah, look, I'm a humanitarian, and I reach out to the poorest of the poor. At any given time, whether it's this crisis or any crisis, and I've reached out to the poorer communities, the rural communities, by handing out water, getting private investors to come in. And again, I have to hint or just say it as it is, the reason we had to get private people and businesses to sponsor water, which they had to buy and pay for and then deliver to us, is because Ugu or the municipality or the people in charge of delivering water plan B where there's tankers, and the tankers would drive past people's houses without any water. So a lot of questions are coming up on, we can see the tankers, they're going up and down, but nobody's getting water. So we had to bring in the private sector. We talked to business people, can we get a container of water, and we bring it in privately and we give it to the residents. Like Yaku, for example, to help him in his business, I will talk to somebody, fill up his tank so that his business can continue. So we're relying heavily on the private sector. The municipalities are doing nothing for us, absolutely nothing.
Kokta and the Ugu District Municipality say they have short-term and long-term plans. They blame this on, they say, leakages within infrastructure that was developed during apartheid for a certain spatial layout. But for residents, that's not enough. I mean, tell me, what has your communication been with them to find a solution?
Look, on the infrastructure point of view, there's been a trend. And the trend in the last 3 months has been unprecedented breaks in pipes. We've been in our democracy for 25 years. So they've been feeding water into the rural areas for 25 years. And even though this has been the case 10, 15 years ago, and a normal breakdown in water supply would last 2 or 3 days and then you're back on. There's something going on here that needs investigation, where in the 3 months that we've been here, there is constant breakages of pipes. As I mentioned earlier on, a pipe will break now outside Yaku's place here. They'll repair it, and then within a few hours, just down the road, the same pipe breaks again. or pumps are breaking, or the reservoir is breaking. So to answer your question, what has KZN done about it? I don't know. Because they're just ignoring everything that we're trying to appeal to them. We've written letters. There are other organizations, the South Coast Water Action Group, that have sent out attorney letters, etc. There are different avenues to put pressure and get the results. And I'm trying to come in as a rights activist and be part of that solution.
Finally, Mr. Sheikh, what's the next step for residents across this area to try and get water?
The next step is to survive until a plan is being put in place, and that's where we rely heavily on the donations and people coming in to help the businesses and the residents and the poorest of the poor, which I'm focusing on, to just get through this phase. We're hoping this is not going to be the standard and the norm. We're going to put enough pressure to ensure that this is not the norm, because if this is the norm, businesses like this establishment here is going to close up. And then people are going to lose their jobs. There's going to be unemployment, and that's going to increase crime, and we can't allow that. We have to look after our place. So residents are going to be taking action. I myself will be engaging in protesting and picketing and making sure that there is a voice for the voiceless people and for the commercial sector as well.
Indeed.
So we will be taking action. We're not going to take this lying down.
Indeed, Mr. Ibrahim Sheikh, he is a community activist, and speaking about the critical water issues, the disruptions that have been going on for years. In fact, we were here in 2019, at the end of 2019, telling the same story, looking at how residents had not received water for weeks on end. KZN as well as the Ugu District Municipality say they've met with residents, especially over the last 2 weeks, following various protests in this area. And in the meanwhile, the South African Human Rights Commission also says that they've received over 100 complaints from residents on the KZN South Coast that they're investigating because, as they say, water is a constitutional right. Access to this resource is a right everyone has. So